So we do record these, we send them out, and usually sometimes we get questions after that. But today we are, what's the topic today? Escrow and what they look for in a contract?
Yeah,
Yes.
what we're looking for in a contract. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's, I say we just jump right into it. Where do you want to start?
Sure. Well, since Amanda is more on the marketing side, she has a couple of things she likes to mention,
Okay.
and then
Cool.
I'll get started on our topic.
Yes. So I'm Amanda Roberts, and this is Angela Salemi. We are from Old Republic Title. Basically, a little bit of what I do as an account executive is I can provide net sheets, leads, and comps, as well as property profiles, and answer any title and escrow questions you may have. Also, I like to get to know each one of my clients and properly match them up with the right escrow officer, depending on what they're looking for. If they're looking for somebody who speaks Spanish, I can match them up properly with a Spanish-speaking escrow officer. Or if they're looking for someone who gives like the most updates, I could match them with an escrow officer that is really good with updating and communication. And with that being said, I will turn it over to Angela to go over our contract and what we look for.
Okay, cool.
So we've got the new Angela, and I've been with Old Republic for 2.5 years now, but I'm 17 years in the business on the escrow side of things the whole time. So I absolutely love this industry. I think most people that are in real estate just say that, but I always like to mention that just because I'm so passionate about it. And one thing that I'm passionate about in this business is our business is always changing. We're always learning and growing. And the big change that we had this year was the new car contract. And I don't know how much education or how much agents have all worked on it, or if it was just kind of like thrown at you guys to just try to figure it out as you go. But over the last couple months, I kind of get the same repeat questions over and over again for different agents as they're starting to fill it out. So I think this is a great topic to go over because the contract changed so much and it looks so different. Yeah. For us, I kind of like how a lot of the stuff that we look for in the contract is in one general section. So I think that's a little bit more user friendly and leaves less things possibly being missed at the table. So I think that's a positive thing with the new contract. But there's just a couple of things that have pushed us to kind of change what we ask for and what we look for when an escrow first opens. So always, the very first thing we've always looked for is, do we have a fully executed contract when a contract is sent to us? So that's a big piece. And there's oftentimes we're still missing pieces or counteroffer signed or whatever, which is fine. But for me to accept the contract, I do need the fully executed contract. The other piece that we really look for too is, and this changed when the closing disclosure and the whole TRID thing came out several years back. The lenders, under the TRID guidelines, the lenders require us to prepare what's called a seller's closing disclosure, which looks similar to their closing disclosure that they're required to prepare with all of the figures on it for the buyer. So they have escrow prepare the one for the seller. Well, part of the TRID rules are that we, as the escrow holder that's preparing the closing disclosure, we have to have all of the contact information and brokerage information for the agents, and that has to be presented on our form. So what I'm looking for in a contract when it comes over is, do we have the broker license number, the agent license number? With this new contract that came out, it no longer has a spot for you to put a phone number, but the phone number is required on the disclosure that I need to prepare. So there is the spot on page 16 that asks for a text number. So I often use that, but it just kind of, in all my years in the business, it just kind of baffles me that one of the big things that I run into on my desk all the time is I don't always get people's contact information up front. Even if a listing agent's sending me a contract, they might not even give me the buyer's agent's phone number. Sometimes, a lot of times they CC them on the email, but sometimes I'm actively seeking that out. And nowadays with these disclosures that we have to do and everything, that having a completed contract with phone numbers, with full addresses for the brokerage, that is all something that we will ask for if it's not on the contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that stuff that you guys are kind of getting some pushback on, or probably since TRID, I would imagine you've been getting some pushback on? So we're
As far as completing all of the contact information on the new contract. So I'm seeing the phone number come up. You know, not everybody's filling in the text number. And that whole section actually has two purposes, but yeah, I see that one. And then there's just some various things in the contract that when we switched over, I'm noticing up in the grid section that people are kind of forgetting to check now, or it's getting overlooked because it's like over in the third, you know, there's like I think there's what, 3 columns basically. And that very last column, everybody's kind of glossing over some of that stuff.
Overlooking the third column. Yeah. You know, I've picked up on a little bit of that too. But what I'll do is I think I'll circle back and kind of go through the first 3 pages. We look for a lot of stuff, some things that I'm seeing missing. And the brokerage numbers were one of them. A lot of times the APN, or the assessor's parcel number, is not showing on the contract. I like to get those personally on the contract. If not, I mean, I always kind of do my own quick little title search before I order a prelim, but there's typically delays if something's wrong, or there's a typo, or if the escrow holder that's opening the escrow doesn't do a quick little title search to make sure we have the correct property. A lot of times it'll go to a searching team and sit on somebody's desk for a little while because they're trying to figure out what the property is. So I think general knowledge for everybody out there, having an APN and an address on there and then being correct will help get a prelim a lot quicker. So I think that's a nice little tip that I'm sure everybody can
understand. How often do you find that the address doesn't match the APN? Because agents are like recycling offers and they're not updating.
Yeah, you know, I had that happen just last week. There was 2 vacant lots that people were opening on one contract, and one of the APNs, there was like typos all over the place. There was extra numbers and it looked super weird. And the way like the numbers are on the keypad, and I was assuming it was a neighboring parcel, and I did some searching to find out what all the neighbor parcels were and if it was the same owner. I kind of figured out, I think you mean this APN.
Yeah.
And I was right, but it was just a massive, somebody with fat thumbs or something was trying to type that. I don't know. And it just turned out to just be all jacked up, the second APN on there. But I mean, had I just opened the order that way, it would have caused delays and back and forth, you know, headaches in the future. And we don't like that. We don't like that over here at Old Republic. So a lot of the things I'm seeing too on the second page of the contract, like you said, that third column, it is coming into play as some issues, but a lot of times the possession section, I really like the way that if there's tenants, it really does kind of zone in and hone in on that before. Whereas I think at the last contract, it was like 4 or 5 pages in and it was kind of hidden, just a little checkbox.
Yeah, little tiny checkboxes. Yeah.
So this really highlights that forward for us so that we don't miss that. And we can work on everything we need to. You work on our ask all our questions, get rents and prorations and everything going early on. More towards page 3 of the contract, something that I'm, oh, that's at page 4. The allocation of costs is the big thing. I am sure everybody's assuming that that's definitely what we look at. I'm seeing a lot of questions on that under escrow fees, that each to pay their own versus 50-50. Don't you have agents that work all over the state of California? Are you guys kind of all over the state?
Yep.
So you guys are familiar with, in every area, there's different customary fees, who pays what. We're here in the Central Valley, and it's really big in the Central Valley where escrow fees paid 50-50 and the seller pays the owner's title policy. I think as you head a little bit north, you see a lot of that owner's title policy paid 50-50, but that each to pay their own on the escrow fee. I get questions all the time on that.
It's actually different than 50-50. Yeah.
Okay, but we have always assumed traditionally, even if it used to say 50-50 on the old card contract, we always kind of traditionally assumed that, I mean, there's some additional fees that we charge as the title company, like let's say a low tie-in fee. I've worked for another company that used to charge like an email loan doc fee. So if the buyer's getting a loan, those are buyer fees. And so that was always kind of implied and assumed. It wasn't ever lined out. And then like on the seller side, a lot of the title companies are charging a fee to prepare the seller tax forms for the state. So that's a seller, also their own notary fees. We're not going to charge, either or. Even if it's 50-50, we're not going to add up all the notary fees and split it 50-50. Typically a seller pays less in notary fees than a buyer does if they're getting a loan. So I'm not sure. I'd love to learn what went into that line item that they added to the contract. I'd love to pick the car brain and find out why they put that there, because it's confusing everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I used to always write it in anyways.
Yeah, either way, if it says 50-50, that's the way we've always assumed it. If it says each to pay their own, it's kind of like those splits that we always did anyway.
Yeah.
With the buyer pays stuff that does with the loan, the seller pays stuff that does with their own tax forms. And it's not, to me, whether each is checked off, I still do it the same. I still do my fee allocation the same way, if that makes sense.
Now, I had always explained it to agents, the difference between the 50-50 and each to pay their own is maybe one of the parties could get a discount for being, military veteran or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so, you don't want that to be spread across. You want it to apply for your client if they are getting the discount and the other party isn't because they don't qualify or whatever. That's how I always explain it. I don't know if that's right, but that's kind of how I would differentiate the difference between 50-50 and each to pay their own.
That's a very good way to explain it, because there is one particular discount that two that I can think of that title companies give. And one of them is for CalPERS employees. They get a discount on escrow rates, but we would still charge the half of our normal rate to the other person. So that's a great example of what you just said right there. And then the other thing is for title policy binder for people that are flipping properties. I don't know if you're familiar with what a binder is, but that's a discount that's applied on their sale, but an extra fee that's applied when they purchase the property. So that I think that would be a perfect example of when that applies. But for us as escrow people, when we see each to pay their own or we see 50-50, we know exactly how to allocate the fees. We're not confused on it. I just think it's the verbiage is confusing to agents that don't know which one to check off when they, everybody just wants to do it the way we used to, I believe, in most cases. The other thing that we're finding is kind of hidden and sometimes can be missed is like that other term section R, because Q is the allocation of costs, and then right below it is section R, additional terms. I'm still finding some people put like the terms for if there's a seller credit or something on there, even though there's a particular section for seller credit. So that I think we kind of need to, hopefully we get a little sharper on that as time goes on and get a little bit better at it.
Since we're in other terms, we're getting a lot of buyer agrees to pay for X amount of dollars over, appraised value.
Appraised value, yeah.
So what are you looking for as far as correct verbiage for that? Because I'm sure it's getting sent over in so many different ways.
I'm going to kind of rephrase your question and hopefully I can answer your question in that to me, it all makes sense to me. In most ways that it's phrased, it makes sense to me and lenders. I think lenders would pitch back more than we do. But what I'm more concerned about is if the appraisal comes in low, I rarely see the appraisal and I rarely know about it. So I would then call out and require an addendum to be created that then specifies what the purchase price is, if the purchase price is going to be lowered or going to be changed because what the appraisal came in at. So, and that will tie into what kind of verbiage was on the additional terms when discussing that. Does that make a little bit of sense? And that, let's say that the property's $500,000 and they said that, they'll pay up to $500,000 even if the appraisal comes in $10,000 lower or something like that. Appraisal comes in at $495. or like, that's not a good example, but anyway, in the reverse, the appraisal comes in much lower, we're going to lower the sales price completely. I don't see the appraisal and there's nothing written within the contract. I always explain to agents that you have to assume if this contract is in a lawsuit in a court of law, that the appraisal's not included in the contract. The appraisal is outside of the contract. So you have to have something in writing that says, now this is what the sales price is because the appraisal came in low or something like that. So I've run into that quite a few times. I feel like prices are, that's not really happening that much anymore. The appraisals are starting to kind of come up and meet price in our area here, but this was like a super popular topic and conversation 3 months ago and all summer long. Like this was like almost everyone, the appraisals were coming in low.
We're getting blasted in San Diego still. Like it's still, we just had one come up 30,000 short just yesterday.
Right.
So it's I do see it regionally for sure, where the appraisals, we're not talking as big of gaps, in some areas as far as other areas. I'm seeing people offer over 300,000 here in San Diego over list price and stuff. It's just absolutely crazy still. Wow. So the appraisals are way short. So
what a difference than the Fresno area. But things are getting a little unaffordable here. I mean, our prices have really pushed up. Rents are super affordable. The housing is super, like it's getting pretty crazy.
I see it in some of the inland areas too. It's mostly like San Diego and some of the coastal areas. We're still seeing a real big difference in the gap, but some of the inland areas and, Central Valley and stuff like that.
If you know anybody, this early summer, late spring, I'm probably going to be relocating down to San Diego for about 6 weeks to go do some radiation with my 7-year-old at Rady's Hospital.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so if you know of anybody that has any Airbnbs or anything like that, I don't know the exact dates I'll be down there yet, but I'm going to be bringing my computer and working there, and we're going to be going to daily radiation appointments at the Children's Hospital, but we need a place to live.
Yeah, we actually just sold one that's getting prepped right now. It's at the edge of National City and Bonita. It's actually a nice little house. So I don't remember where Rady's is though. I have to look to see if it's.
I've been told I haven't. We've traveled a lot to San Diego, but so I kind of know a little bit of the area, but I'm not I haven't looked at a map yet. I've been told it's kind of close to the SeaWorld area.
Okay, well, this one would work then.
Yeah,
it's not too bad. Yeah, we
so
can talk
anyway,
offline on that.
We're digressing,
okay,
but if you can think of anybody, I will be looking for a rental that I'll be paying for about 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. I think mid-May to late May is when we're going to start. We don't know yet. We're in chemotherapy right now, so we'll get through that. And next step, we're headed to San Diego.
All right.
So, so back to what we were talking about with the financing and that appraisal. I'm seeing a lot of people put that in section. What section is that? On page 2 under the financing terms, G2. That's where I'm seeing it go. But then it does go a lot of times in the appraisal verbiage that you were just referring to. I'm seeing
I don't see everybody using that function yet. I think it's a little murky as to that little appraisal section that they added in there. I still see people writing it out instead of just checking the box.
I just reviewed a contract yesterday that had that there too, and I'm like, why aren't we using that box yet?
Yeah.
but there's just a couple more things on the contract to let you know that what we look for, and the other part of me kind of not really accepting the contract, but essentially having a fully executed contract is all those advisories that are included as attachments. I have a lot of, I get a lot of contracts in and they have checked off, for instance, the BIA, buyer's inspection advisories attached, but it's not. So just so we can have a fully whole file and everybody has a fully executed contract, it's just like, I look at it as exhibits being attached to something that gets recorded. Like it's part of the contract. It's part of what needs to be recorded. It's an exhibit. It should be included as well. So if I don't have one and I see that box checked off, I'm gonna reach out and ask for that prior to closing so that I have a full file.
So you're talking about
other
like,
than
the SBSA or like a SWIPY form or something like that,
all of
not
those.
coming over with the RPA.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then more particularly, the things that have terms on them that I'm most concerned about too is like the SWPI. We're in Fresno County. We've got a lot of rural areas and a lot of farm and ag and, people on well and people on septic. I don't know if you guys experience that a lot down there, but
actually in the inland, yeah, we have a fair amount of farm where I am in North County, San Diego.
Yeah, well, those are, there's always fee allocations on those forms. And then like something that's been really popular too is seller rent backs. So I think that's the SIP form that sometimes has terms on that too. So those are definitely attachments that we don't want to forget at all. I also like to mention too, whenever I have agents in front of me, the entity forms, if our buyer or our seller is a trust or an LLC or a corporation. I think this contract kind of like added in some extra space to really clarify that. But when it comes to doing title searches and title reports and, people passing away and maybe probate or somebody, the original trustee of a trust passing away, this is all great information to have to start an escrow out with when we're doing a title search. And it's great information to have just throughout the process of escrow, because we will eventually need LLC documents or trust documents. So I always, when I have the attention of agents, I always like to mention how important it is to get us that proper information. And at least the contract presents a great opportunity to just like the initial conversation. Hey, this isn't a trust. We're dealing with a successor trustee here. So I really liked that RCSD form. Is that what it is? The RCSD, the representative capacity signature. I love that form. And I point people in that direction all the time that don't use it. But it doesn't have all the information on it I'm going to need. But it's a great form to flag to me to let me know that we're going to be dealing with not just an individual here, an entity. So very useful information.
Just for the people on the webinar, what are you looking for to verify that the people on the contract or the RCSD form are the actual people that should be signing on behalf?
That's a very good question. So with a trust, if you're dealing with the original acting trustees of the trust, and when the title report comes in and the vesting is, Bob Smith and Jane Smith, trustees of the Smith Family Trust, then I don't typically need anything further. Any title company is going to require a trust certification that they sign off that the trust allows them to sell the property and they are the acting trustees, blah, blah, blah. But they typically wouldn't need to bring in a copy of their whole trust agreement. If you're dealing with a successor trustee, the title company is going to want to see the trust agreement and prove that they are the successor trustee. When you're dealing with a trust and somebody has capacity issues or maybe has dementia or Alzheimer's or something, and we're now going to not be able to sign or act on their behalf anymore, then the trust will indicate typically there needs to be 2 doctor's notes turned in and some other information turned in along with the trust agreement to prove to us that the successor trustee is now taking over and signing. So that's for a trust. For an LLC, we're going to need the operating agreement and the articles of organization and a list of all members and their titles, unless it's a single member. So whoever signs on their behalf, there's going to need to have the entity documents for the LLC prove that that person has the authority to sign. For a corporation, it's kind of the same. You need bylaws and you need the articles as well, but oftentimes there needs to be what's called a resolution where the all the board members need to get together and say, it's being resolved that this property, the company authorizes the sale of this property, and this is the person we named to do all the signing. So oftentimes we're going to need to see that as well. And if that calls for a board meeting where people need to get together and have the meeting, that's going to take a little bit of time to get everybody's schedules together. So knowing about all that stuff up front is super helpful and conducive to staying within a timeline of an escrow, whether it be a 15-day escrow, 30-day escrow, 45, whatever. whether it be commercial or residential, it's needed in all of those types of transactions.
Yeah.
I think I covered, well, I'll talk about probate too. Probate's a big one. I just always like to say, get me in touch with the probate attorney.
Yeah.
And I'll work directly with the probate attorney and let them know what I need. And depending on what part of the probate case they're in, there's different things I'm going to need.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but essentially there's an order that we need to record if it hasn't already been recorded, authorizing the person to act on behalf of the estate who's going to sign your contract. So I often have agents call me when they're listing a property and it's in probate, and we kind of have that conversation so they know who to have sign their contract. You know, they kind of, a lot of the agents I work with on a regular basis are kind of trained to just ask me ahead of time, because they know if we cover a lot of these things ahead of time, then it goes so much smoother once they find a buyer. So
Yeah.
I'm always available to people to help answer those questions or have a conversation with an attorney during the listing process, just to kind of get that all dialed in so everybody knows what to expect.
Okay.
Up front. And then I think I already talked about page 16 of the contract, having everything filled in, tons of that information we need to know. I see lenders all the time also call out, of course, if there's a missing signature by an agent, or if there is a missing broker license number, I see lenders call that out as a funding condition or a prior to doc condition. So I think just making sure that the contract is completed is a very great practice to be in. To just keep pushing things along as quick as possible and not having to have all these trailing conditions. So like I said, the reason why I always like to tell people the reason why, if I'm asking for something, but the big reason why I always ask for, you know, call out for stuff on the contract is a lot of it I need to do my closing disclosure for the seller. And I know a lender is going to call out for it too. The very last piece I want to go over on what we look for a contract, and this is brand new with this new car contract, the acceptance date. And we always went along the lines of the acceptance date was the date that the seller accepted the buyer's offer. Or when there's counter offers, the date that the last counter offer was signed by the party that was presented the offer, right? So now we've shifted gears to be the acceptance date is the date that the accepted contract is delivered to the offering party. So that may not always be the same day that the seller signs. If the seller signs late in the day or in the evening, the agent the next day may bring it to the buyer and present it the very next day. So I don't know if that's your understanding of it, but that's how our company is training us to look at this when we're calculating our timeline. And when I'm accepting the contract, it specifically asks me, escrow holder is advised by whomever that the acceptance date is. So when somebody sends me an escrow to open, a lot of time TCs will give me a timeline and they'll put right on there, the acceptance date is this date, and this is our close date, and this is when the EMDs due, and blah, blah, blah. So I just use that date. But most of the time, if I'm not given that timeline and somebody doesn't actually physically tell me what the acceptance date is, I'm calling out right away when I'm sending my opening email. I'm going to need for somebody to advise me on what date, you know, what to use for the acceptance date. So that's adding an extra steps that I have to do now that this new contract is out. So I think it's just kind of getting everybody trained on that and getting the word out there that this is, we're looking at this a little differently than we used to.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not dealing with the confirmations anymore either. So.
Yeah. So so that is a big piece, and I need that information before I will sign and accept the contract. And I don't know how much you guys are aware of it, but a lot of lenders, I mean, that's one of their conditions. So we don't want to slow a lender down when a lender asks for something. In my mind, I'm always trying to tell people if a lender asks for something, give it to them right away. So if I'm asking for that information, that's why I need it. It's to accept the contract and then to calculate my timeline, unless you guys like to do that for us, which that's great too. So do you have any questions that we didn't already?
I don't. I'm seeing if anybody has anything that they have questions on. I'm not seeing anything. And he does say hi.
I don't know. I'm gonna actually leave both of our emails in the little chat box to the side. We
Okay,
have a couple of apps for your phone, like a farming app and then a NetSheet app. And then one of our apps also allows you to look up current and past orders. So I'll put that in there. If anyone's interested in checking them out, just email me and I'll get you set up with all of our online tools and resources.
okay, cool. And then we'll send those out with the replay as well.
Great, thank you.
And one more thing I want to add too, while I have your audience, I don't know how we're doing on time here, is Old Republic came out with this app. We rolled out with it last year to do a mobile deposit for earnest money deposits. We call it, we're with a company called Zocam. Nowadays, with people being so techy, I'm finding a lot of people are super excited about it. They don't have to get in the car and drive to us to drop off a check, or, you know, everybody's so scared about wire fraud. So we are accepting that for deposits. It's just like a mobile deposit with your bank, where you take a picture of the check after you log in and everything and put in the details of the escrow. So it's becoming super popular, but I do like to disclose that we don't use it for closing funds. Closing funds have to be wired, or we have to have a cashier's check the day prior to closing.
Just the EMD, right?
So it's just for the earnest money deposit, or if there's a situation where there's like an increased deposit, and we're not closing within 10 business days, we can also accept it in that situation. But that's something that I am advertising and having a conversation with buyers on every escrow I open. I kind of give them those options. Here's your options, whatever is going to be easiest for you. And most people are popping back and saying that they want to try the Zocam, and it's pretty user friendly. So
Yeah, and it keeps our hands off of it.
Get the word out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
having us on here today. It was very nice to meet you, Travis.
It's nice to meet you as well. And thanks for coming on and giving us a little overview of some stuff you're looking for and things that are getting missed, so we can all, you know, work towards tightening up our paperwork and, you know, making things just run a little smoother. So
Yeah. Hey, I'm always about getting more efficient and a little smoother.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Quicker,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
we can all go home at 5, right?
Exactly. Something like
Not
that.
you guys, but me.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Exactly. So,
All right. Well, it was very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you as
I'm
well.
going to
and
add
good Wednesday. What was that?
our emails in after I shut off.
Yeah,
the
and
computer.
anybody down in your area, if you know anybody looking for a short-term tenant this summer.
Like I said, we do have one that we
Looking for a
just
landlord.
we're prepping it right now, and so it's a nice little house. I think it's a 3-bedroom and has a pool.
Yeah,
Shouldn't be too expensive.
Oh wow, I'm gonna be relocating my 2 kids and my mom mostly for childcare down there for most of the time.
Okay.
We're gonna treat it as like a vacation, since we won't be taking a lot of vacations this year. We're gonna, you know, hit SeaWorld and Legoland and all the fun stuff down there.
Okay.
So we're
I'll get the
excited
address
about
for
it.
you, and I can put you in contact with the Airbnb guy, and if it fits your needs, go for it. So,
and
but we just got it, so he's looking to get it booked.
That's
So
cool. The hospital is supposed to be sending me some information as well on some stuff that people have agreements with the hospital and stuff too. So I'll probably be doing a little hunting and pecking. And I think my biggest motivation is to just be as close to the hospital as possible where we're getting radiation. So it's just a quick little lunch break I have to take every day to go run and do that.
yeah.
And then I can move on to my work day. All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
right,
Enjoy
sounds
the rest
good.
of your day.
Okay, you too. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Let us go.